The night that changed my whole life started with a silence so deep and so heavy that it felt like it had its own weight, pressing down on every room in our home. My wife, Lisa, came home that evening just like she did every other day. She was probably expecting our usual routine to happen. She likely thought we might have a small argument about whose turn it was to do the chores or what we should pick to eat for dinner. But when she walked through that front door, one new picture sitting on the living room wall made her stop dead in her tracks. I will never be able to forget the look on her face when she first stepped inside. She had this smile on her face that looked so easy and free, like she didn't have a worry in the world. It was that same sweet, gentle smile she used to give only to me a long time ago, back when our love felt like a beautiful dream that would last forever. For just a tiny, split second, that smile almost made me doubt everything I had learned. It almost fooled me into thinking everything was okay. But I already knew the truth. I knew exactly where she had been spending her time. Even more than that, I knew the person she had been spending it with while I was at home waiting for her. She walked into the house, humming a little tune to herself, sounding quite happy. She set her purse down on the kitchen counter, just like it was any other normal Tuesday night. She had no idea that a storm was already brewing right across the room from her. Then her eyes moved. They landed on a photograph I had placed right in the middle of our kitchen island. I had set it there under the low light from the ceiling, so she could not possibly miss it. I watched as her whole body went stiff and hard. That happy smile didn't just fade away. It vanished in a single heartbeat. Her skin turned as white as a ghost, and she couldn't seem to catch her breath. She took a shaky step back, looking like that piece of paper had actually jumped out and hit her. She grabbed onto the edge of the counter, so hard that her knuckles turned white. I had gone to the store and printed that photo earlier that morning. It was a nice, clear 5x7 picture. In the photo, she was wearing that pretty red dress I bought for her on our wedding anniversary 2 years ago. Her head was tilted back as she laughed at something funny. But the man standing next to her had his hand resting on her lower back in a way that showed they were very close. They were standing in the lobby of a fancy hotel in the downtown area of Seattle, Washington. This was the very same hotel she told me she was visiting during a spa weekend with her girlfriends only 3 weeks before. She had lied to me about where she was and who she was with. I had been feeling like something was very wrong for a long time. It was a cold feeling in my stomach that wouldn't go away. So I decided to ask for help from a person who finds out the truth for a living, a private investigator. What that person found was a pile of proof that no one could argue with. It was a very long and sad list of everything she thought she was hiding. There were pictures of her in places she said she never went. There were receipts from stores where she bought things I never saw. There were even pictures of her private text messages, words meant for someone else's eyes. I had spent many weeks sitting alone at night, looking at those things over and over. I let the truth sink into my heart until it felt like a heavy stone, until I felt strong enough to finally talk about it. Now, it was her turn to look at the truth and see what I had seen. She could barely find the words to speak. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice barely a sound. Her eyes kept moving back and forth between me and the photo. It looked like she was hoping the world would just change and make the photo go away, or that it was all just a bad dream. "You tell me," I said back to her. I kept my voice very quiet and steady. It was the kind of quiet that happens right before a big storm breaks the sky open. She didn't say anything for a long time. Her face looked empty, but her eyes were like those of a scared animal caught in the dark by a car's headlights. She was looking for a way to run, but there were no doors left open for her anymore. All the exits were closed. "How long?" I asked. The words felt like a sharp knife in the quiet room. "Lisa, how long has this been going on?" I asked again, making sure she heard me clearly. Finally, she broke down. Her shoulders dropped, and she whispered that it had been 6 months. Half a year. For 6 whole months, she had been tricking me. She had been leaving our home, lying straight to my face, and sharing special moments and touches with another man. I felt a cold, deep anger moving through me, but I didn't let it burst out. Not yet. I wanted to stay calm because I needed her to hear me. I picked up the photo from the island and held it right in front of her face. I pointed to the man who was holding her. "What is his name?" I asked softly. She waited a second, and I could see tears starting to fill her eyes. "Matthew," she said, her voice shaking and breaking apart. Matthew, the man she met in hotel rooms while she told me she was busy reading books and having a glass of wine with her friends. Matthew was the person she gave her heart to while I was working extra hours at my job. I worked those long hours so I could pay for our house, our bills, her car, and the life she liked to live. When I said his name, she started sobbing loudly. She hid her face in her hands and fell apart right there in front of me on the kitchen floor. I just stood there and watched her. I didn't move to help her or comfort her. Her crying didn't make me feel sorry for her at all. If anything, seeing her cry just made the fire of anger inside me burn a little hotter. "I didn't want this to happen," she wailed through her tears. "It was just a mistake." I took a step back from her, making my face look like it was made of stone. "Forgetting to pay a light bill is a mistake," I told her. "Spilling a glass of water is a mistake. This was something you planned. You made a choice, Lisa. You made that same choice over and over again for 6 months. You chose him every single day." She looked at me with begging eyes, her face red from crying. "I will stop seeing him right now," she promised. "I will delete his number. I will do anything you want, Jacob. Just please do not leave me. I still love you." A mean, dry laugh came out of my throat. It even surprised me a little bit, because I didn't know I had that sound in me. "You love me?" I asked, feeling very bitter. "You do not hurt someone you love like this. You do not cheat and tell lies and make them feel like they are not good enough for you. That is not what love looks like." I turned away and walked into the living room. I picked up a folder I had left on the table and handed it to her. "Look at this," I told her. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely turn the pages. Inside the folder was every bit of proof the investigator found, all put in order. With every page she turned, she looked more and more broken. When she looked up at me again, I stopped her before she could even start to speak. "No more talking," I said. "I already talked to a lawyer. I changed all the computer passwords. I changed the locks on the doors, too. I want you to be out of this house by tomorrow morning. A person will bring you the divorce papers next week." She let out a loud gasp like I had punched her in the stomach. "No, Jacob, please do not do this. We can fix our marriage. We can go talk to a person who helps couples. We can work through this if we try." I finally snapped. "There is no fixing this," I said firmly. "You ended our marriage the second you let that man into your life. You broke the promise we made. It just took me a little while to realize it was already gone." She fell down to the floor, crying and begging me to stay, but it was too late. Her crying could not take that photo out of my mind. It could not erase the picture of her being close to another man in Seattle. I left her there on the floor and went upstairs. My bags were already packed and ready to go. I rolled them into the guest room because I knew I would never sleep in the same bed with her again. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just lay there in the dark, thinking about when we first met. I thought about our wedding day, the big plans we made for our future, and the life we built together. I wondered how much of it was even real. How long had she been pretending to be happy with me? How could I have been so blind to what was happening right under my nose? By the time the sun came up, she was gone. She left a small note on the kitchen counter of our house on Birch Lane in Portland, Oregon. In the note, she asked me to forgive her and begged me to think about her again. I didn't even bother to finish reading the whole thing. I just crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. The weeks that came after were very hard and lonely, but I stayed busy. I worked a lot, spent time with my good friends who cared about me, and started talking to a therapist to help me feel better. Slowly, the heavy anger and the deep hurt started to go away. Healing took a long time, and some days were harder than others, but peace did come. One afternoon, I got a message from Matthew's wife. She had found out about the cheating, too. We decided to meet and talk over a cup of coffee at a little cafe on State Street in Boise, Idaho. We talked about how our hearts were broken and how it felt to be lied to by the people we trusted most. We also talked about how we were moving forward with our lives. It felt good to talk to someone who knew exactly how I felt. We made a quiet promise to each other that we would always remember that we deserved to be treated well and with respect. Many months later, I heard from someone we both knew that Lisa and Matthew didn't stay together. Their relationship fell apart pretty quickly once it wasn't a secret anymore. She moved away from the city not long after that. I didn't feel like I had won anything, but I did feel like that chapter of my life was finally closed. The photo that started it all is now in a box at the bottom of my closet. It is a sad reminder of the life I used to have, but it is also a good reminder. It reminds me to trust my gut feelings when something feels wrong. It reminds me never to settle for less than I deserve and to always value being honest. As for me, I am doing okay now. Actually, I am doing more than okay. I have started going on dates again. I am being very careful with my heart, but I feel hopeful about the future. I feel something I have not felt in a very long time. I feel freedom. I have the freedom to live my own truth, to love again, and to be truly happy. And I have realized that being happy and living well is the best way to move on from the people who hurt you.